Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show. Coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Solo stumbles out of the blocks. Why did that happen? And can you look at it as a positive or a negative? Kim Possible gets some new casting addition. New Incredibles 2 posters. What can we expect from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and all that kind of good stuff? I'm going to be joined by Migdalia Melendez as we do the movie news feed. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to share something with you because, you know, I like to share some fun stuff with you guys from now and again. So Ann tells me the other day, got invited to this Beauty and the Beast sing-along thing at the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood. And I thought it was just like, okay, they play the movie and the whole audience sings along. But it was more than that. See, what they do is they play the movie on the giant screens with the dialogue, but they take out the music. And what happens is they have the live orchestra on stage playing the music, and then they had different people coming out to sing the parts that were in the movie. So you had Zooey Deschanel from New Girl. She was playing Belle. You had Taye Diggs as Gaston. You had Rebel Wilson as LeFou, who was great as LeFou. Kelsey Grammer as Amir. It was really, really fun, and we got to sit in the front row. And I wanted to share a little bit of my experience. So here's just 1 minute. I want to share this with you, because if you guys get a chance to go to see something like this, I highly recommend you check it out. So here, take a look at this.
So we are at the Hollywood Bowl. You see everybody behind us. We are literally in the front row.
Welcome to Beauty and the Beast in concert at the Hollywood Bowl. You see, here's where she meets Prince Charming.
Be our guest, be our guest. Put our service to the test. Tie a napkin around your neck, Shelly, and we provide the rest. Soup de jour, hors d'oeuvre, while we only live to serve. Try the great stuff, it's delicious. Don't believe me, ask the dishes.
Life like Gaston, does this life like Gaston?
Fantastic at the morning, don't get down.
When there's no one is Curly and Ronnie.
As you see, I've got my sense of spare. That's right. And every last inch of me's covered in hair.
Tale as old as time, true as it can be.
Anyway, so there you go. That was some of my experience. So I just wanted to share that with you because I really wanted to encourage you. It was so much fun. If you get a chance anywhere near you guys when they do these concerts, check it out, because I got to admit, I had far more fun than I thought I would. So, and it's one of the best movies ever, Beauty and the Beast. It's so good. Every time you watch Beauty and the Beast, you forget how good it is until you watch it and you're like, oh my God, I forgot how good this movie is. Anyway, so listen guys, with all that out of the way, let's dive in to today's movie news feed. First up, the newest installment of the Star Wars franchise, Solo, opened in theaters this weekend. As expected, the film took the #1 spot. However, not nearly as dominantly as many industry outlets had predicted. Star Wars Solo stepped in with an $83 million opening weekend, making it the 4th biggest opening of any film in 2018, trailing only behind Deadpool 2, which made $125 million, Black Panther at $202 million, and The Avengers Infinity War at $257 million. However, those numbers don't really tell the whole story. $83 million marks the lowest opening for all 4 of the Star Wars movies in the current Disney era. Compounding the perceived disappointment is the early tracking numbers that suggested Solo could open as high as $150 million, a number it fell well short of. So, at #1 at the box office and the 4th biggest opening of the year, is this a positive for the Star Wars franchise or a negative? I'm going to tell you right now, it's a negative. Now look, I completely get almost any film out there would love to open at $83 million. Directors would kill to have a film that opens at $83 million. However, this isn't just any film. This is a Star Wars film. Now, granted, it is a Star Wars film that's kind of one of the anthology films. It's not one of the episodic films. I get that, but it still should have opened bigger. And I've been telling you guys, even when all the projection numbers came out, 150 million, all that kind of stuff, I was like, okay, but I still kind of feel it's going to come in close to 100. Why? For 4 reasons. Number one, this is a film that nobody asked for, all right? Nobody wanted a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. Number two, there's a good group of people out there that did not like The Last Jedi, so that was working against it. Number three, you've still got Avengers Infinity War and Deadpool 2 in theaters right now, and Deadpool 2 is just on its second weekend. That was working against it as well. You compound that with the fact that people only go to see so many movies in a particular month or even in a particular year, and a bunch of them just spent some money to go see Avengers and Deadpool, and that kind of, look, it's just that there were so many factors working against it here that this whole time I've been saying I just have a hard time seeing it coming over 100 million. Now, still, 83 million is even lower than I thought it would come in. And the fact of the matter is they made a pretty good movie. I like this film. I think the vast majority of the people like it as well. But all these things put together, you cannot consider this anything but bad news. I don't know, Migdalia, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I cannot believe, even though I was not excited for this film at all, I'm like, no one asked for this. Why are they doing this? I cannot believe it came in under 100 million in America here. But again, I think Lucasfilm just got way too cocky. They shouldn't have moved it from its original December release date. That was dumb. That's like the Star Wars Christmas movie. That's like moving a Star release date to March. It's not going to work here. And,
See, and I thought it could have worked in May. I just why would you put it on the second weekend of didn't they learn anything when that Planet of the Apes movie opened when Planet of the Apes opened on the second weekend of Spider-Man Homecoming? Didn't they learn anything from that?
They just thought they were going to have the PG-13 crowd that, they'll take a lot of the Deadpool 2 crowd. But hello, the first Deadpool made a ginormous amount of money. Now, this is technically the second Star Wars dud in a row. So I see it as a positive because maybe Lucasfilms will take a step back and say, hey, maybe quality over quantity. Maybe we should listen to the fans when they say they don't want a movie, without Harrison Ford or about Lando or whatever. Maybe we should listen to that.
Next up, with Star Wars Solo now in theaters, the next major projected blockbuster coming up this summer is The Incredibles 2, which is set to hit theaters on June 15th. Disney has released a number of new international character posters for the feature, which early projections suggest could become the biggest opening weekend of all time for an animated film. Then again, keep in mind, Solo was recently projected by the industry to come in at $150 million opening weekend, so take that for what it's worth. So, Migdalia, what do you think of these posters, and can Incredibles 2 open as big as expected, or will it face a Solo kind of letdown?
Well, John, these posters are simple. They're nice looking. They're hitting all the marketing triggering colors for kids to be excited about, but not overwhelmed. And I think it will meet or beat expectations. This is like the mostly anticipated movie of Disney Pixar here. But I think whatever records it does break will be topped by Toy Story 4.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And also, here's the thing, too. The posters are fine. I mean, there's really nothing here special to talk about. They look nice. They're of the characters that we love. Okay, nice job. They're fine. I don't think we're going to get a letdown for The Incredibles expectations like we did for Solo for the exact same reasons that I thought Solo would, or at least come in way under 150. The fact that it's not opening on the second weekend of another giant film. The fact that it's not coming off another Pixar film that had a large amount of backlash from certain people. The fact that it didn't have any behind the scenes director drama going on or anything else like that. It's the fact that they do have all the original voice cast and they're not replacing all the original voice cast like Solo movie without Harrison Ford. So for all those reasons, I think as we find out, will it become the biggest opening weekend in history for an animated film? Maybe, maybe not, I'm not sure, but it will be a huge hit and it'll come in big regardless. Next up, on Friday's The John Campea Show, we briefly discussed the release of the latest Christopher Robin poster, but later that day, a brand new trailer for the upcoming film was released. Christopher Robin is stuck in a job where he's overworked, underpaid, and facing an uncertain future. He has a family of his own now, but his work has become his life, leaving little time for his wife and daughter, as he has all but forgotten his idyllic childhood spent with a simple-minded, honey-loving stuffed bear and his friends. But when he is reunited with Winnie the Pooh, now tattered and soiled from years of hugs and play, a spark is rekindled, and he is reminded of the endless days of childlike wonder and make-believe that defined his youth, when doing nothing could be considered doing something. Christopher Robin is scheduled to hit theaters on August 3rd. Migdalia, is the Christopher Robin marketing legitimately endearing or just kind of cheaply pandering?
oh, I don't want to say cheaply pandering. I mean, a little bit of emotional pandering and very endearing. John, I can't believe you made me watch this trailer because I saw the first one and I almost cried. And then I saw the second one. I definitely cried because I have a thing for like little bears that walk around. I don't know. I'm weird. But I cannot wait for this film. It's going to be a great birthday present for myself. And the puppet, I don't know if it's a mixture of puppetry or CGI, but the way that Pooh and his friends look, it's incredible. And the trailer is nice and it's all heartwarming, and we need a little bit of a reprieve from what's going on in the country. So.
And and it's really nice to once in a while, like coming off of like the heaviness of Avengers Infinity War and coming off of the R-rated stuff of Deadpool 2, both of which I really enjoyed. This is just magic. This trailer was pure magic. I grinned from ear to ear the entire time this trailer was playing. I absolutely adored it. And the two lines to me that really stand out, the one is, I'm paraphrasing a little bit when he says, how do you know where you're going? Well, I find if I just walk away from where I was, I get to where I'm going. And the other one is, people say nothing is impossible, but I do nothing all day. I love it. It's just so beautiful. And you're right. I think it's probably going to be a little bit of mixture of like actual physical stuffed puppets sitting there and a little bit of mixture, probably a heavy dose of CGI as well. Ewan McGregor was the perfect choice for this. I think he's fitting in perfectly as the older Christopher Robin. I cannot wait to watch this movie. And finally, it was announced a short time ago that Disney was bringing back the popular Kim Possible character in the form of a live-action motion picture. It was announced this weekend that Buffy the Vampire Slayer and How I Met Your Mother actress Allison Hannigan has joined the project. The actress will be playing Kim's brain surgeon mom, aka Mom Possible, aka Dr. Ann Possible. The live-action Kim Possible movie is set to hit theaters in 2019. And I will tell you right now, I know nothing about Kim Possible. I have heard of Kim Possible. I've heard it referenced by people before, but I don't know the sweet first lick about this show. But I do know Allison Hannigan. She's great. She's just one of these actresses that your heart warms up a little bit when you see her on screen. She's able to bring that kind of charisma, that kind of character to any kind of a role she plays. So even though I know nothing about Kim Possible, adding an actress like her can do nothing but good things for a project like this. Even though I know nothing about a project like this. What are your thoughts, Migdalia?
I agree. Allison Hannigan, she's great. I grew up with her watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But she's going to steal the show. She's a great character actress. Where is this movie coming from? Why is it coming now? I think Kim Possible was a thing when I was a kid, or maybe my sister was a kid, but that was like 20 years ago. So why now? And sorry if I'm being ignorant here, but is it currently airing on Disney right now? Is there a resurgence of Kim Possible? It's a great character, but is it going to go the way of the live action Nancy Drew? Who knows? I mean, kids, little girls these days, they need a little bit of a role model, I guess. I don't know. I can't tell you why this is happening.
Yeah, it's tough. No, but man, I'm telling you, I've seen some little kids talking online being really excited about this, even though we don't know much about it. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And that will get you all caught up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. Now let's get to some main topics. I'm sure we're going to talk some more solo stuff once we get into the live question stuff. I haven't looked at them yet, but I'm sure you guys are probably sending in a lot of comments about the solo stuff. But right now I want to get to our main topics of the day. And the main topic today, of course, submitted by you guys. How do you send in a topic or question for the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. All right, let's get things going with the first question today. And the first question today comes to us from our Patreon supporter, Puneet Singh, who writes, "Hey, John, I am too hoping on your not doubting the Jurassic World train, as I just heard that the review embargo for Fallen Kingdom lifts 17 days before release. That is some great faith in the movie. What are your thoughts? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Well, yeah, I can confirm with you that the review embargo for Jurassic World lifts on I believe it's a Tuesday, June 5th. I'm actually going to see it in the morning of June 5th, and then I'm going to put up my review that same day. So they are lifting it early. And you know what? I said this, but this is what I was talking about before, why he said the don't doubt Jurassic World. I doubted the first Jurassic World. I doubted it. I doubted it in terms of quality, and I doubted it that it would do any good at the box. Well, I knew it would do well at the box office, but I didn't think it was going to break box office records. And it came out and it was a huge juggernaut. So I decided that this time around, even though I haven't liked the trailers for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I'm not going to doubt it. I'm probably predicting, since Avengers Infinity War is technically not a summer movie because of when it opened, although it really is, but technically it's not. Okay, fine. I'm going to guess that Jurassic World is going to be the biggest box office hit of the summer. This is something I said about a month ago. But we're hearing now some early fan reactions coming out of Spain that were like really off the chart. And these aren't like secret, these aren't these fake ass, secret test screenings. No. They pay them big public things in Spain. They let people release their Twitter reactions for it. And the Twitter reactions have been fantastic. You compile that with the fact that they are indeed lifting the review embargo for this thing weeks before the movie comes out. It doesn't mean the movie's good, but I think it does mean the studio thinks it's good. The studio believes we're going to love it. Now, they may be right and they may be wrong. We'll have to wait and find out. But you're right, Punet. This actually absolutely does point to the studio having a lot of faith in this movie. Is the faith misplaced? We won't know until we see it, but we're going to find out for sure on June 5th. All right, let's move on now to the next email. And the next email today comes to us from Heath Hassel, who writes, "Hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Heath. My question is, with talks of Sylvester Stallone doing a new Expendables movie and a Rambo movie, especially with the last Expendables movie having a low box office, do you think Stallone is planning for retirement and just trying to get a couple of more movies out? Or do you think these will actually be hits? I'm a fan of both franchises." Well, I don't think either will be hits. I think both can make money. Sure, they can. But I don't think either of them will be hits, and that's fine. Is Stallone just planning for retirement? No, I don't think so. Stallone loves the Expendables franchise. It's kind of been his baby. Rambo has obviously been his baby forever. He got back into, so has Rocky. So we've seen him going back to these tried and true franchises over and over and over again. And don't forget, he's got Escape Plan 2 coming out here pretty soon too. That one, no one's going to watch. But anyway, so we've got these ones coming out. I don't think it's a matter of him planning for retirement. I think it's just him making movies that he feels pretty confident that his audience wants to see. I think it's just that simple. I think he believes he's got a little bit of a built-in audience for Expendables, although it's not going to be a huge hit. It may still make money, though. Same thing with Rambo 5. And I think he would love to send out Rambo 5 on a high note. And because the last Rambo film was actually pretty damn good, super violent, but pretty damn good at the same time. So no, I don't think this is him planning for retirement. I think it's just like any producer or any director or any actor. He just is interested in putting out a movie he thinks there's going to be some interest in. That's why he's going with these. All right, let's move on to the final email of the day before we get to the live questions. And the final email today comes to us from Adam Langevin, who writes, "I just saw A Quiet Place last night and absolutely loved it. I thought the acting, filming, and sound design of it was all phenomenal. Do you feel it has any Oscar chances? What would you like to see it win? The situation of a generally comedic actor directing a thriller seems to resemble 2017's Get Out. I want to see it nominated for sound, editing, mixing, VFX, visual effects, and possibly Emily Blunt." Well, whenever people bring up A Quiet Place, and this is how good A Quiet Place is, and to me, A Quiet Place is still the best film of 2018 so far. I think this is the best film of 2018 so far. And the fact that everybody keeps wanting to talk about what are the Oscar chances kind of points towards how good this movie really is. But as I always say, it is way too early to talk about Oscars for this thing. Because you don't just get, these aren't participation awards. You were a really good movie. We give you an Oscar. No. You can't just be good. You got to be better than all the competition. And as of right now, we haven't even seen the movies that are going to be the real competition for it. For all you know, and for all I know, 18 other movies may come out that are all better than A Quiet Place. I mean, probably not, but it's possible. 28 other movies may come out that are better than A Quiet Place. 15 other actresses may come out with performances that are better than Emily Blunt's in A Quiet Place. All that kind of stuff. However, if we just want to play the game, what I always then say is, if the Academy Awards were going to be held tomorrow, yes, I would say it has to be nominated for Best Picture. I would give it Best Picture. Yes, Emily Blunt has to be nominated, maybe even win Best Actress. Yes, John Krasinski should be nominated, maybe even win Best Director. Yes, it should absolutely win Best Sound Design. Visual effects, nah, the creatures in the movie look really good, but they're used so sparingly and there's so few visual effects, I wouldn't give it a nomination or consider for visual effects myself. But sure, there's a lot of things it would be. But again, it's far too early. Let's talk in late November. Let's start these discussions mid to late November. Once we get a better grasp on what the real competitions for it's going to be, then we can start formulating some opinions about that. Okay, with that stuff out of the way, guys, we got about 10, 12 minutes left to take some of your live questions. I know a whole bunch of you guys have already been sending them, so let's jump over to the live chat board right now. And we start things off with KW Garrett, who writes, just returned from the long weekend vacation at the beach and wanted to plug your Patreon membership because your podcasts keep me company on both 8-hour drives. Thanks to you. Well, thank you so much, KW Garrett. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you had a chance to get away for the weekend. Curtis Lopez writes, do you think the box office for Solo will make Lucasfilm think twice about making prequels off of existing characters? Well, see, I don't know, but that's one of the things we're talking about. It was no one thing. Like, we listed off like 4 big problems, right? The fact that nobody wanted a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. All the behind-the-scenes director drama. Them losing the director, reshooting 80% of the movie, all that kind of stuff. The fact that there's a bunch of people out there that didn't like The Last Jedi. Compound that with the fact that you're putting it out while Avengers Infinity War is still in theaters. But most importantly, Deadpool was only going on to its second weekend. So you got that as well. It is no one of those 4 things. I think Solo would have been fine. It would have made 100, 110, 120, whatever million if it was just any one of those things. But you put all of those things together and you've got a pretty lethal mixture that ends up getting you a sub $100 million opening film. Now that's right around where I thought, but it's even lower than what I thought it was going to be. Like, I thought it would get up to about 100. I didn't think it'd be as low as 83. But I've been preaching that 4-pronged fork for months now, and people just keep saying I was being stubborn. It's like, and I like this. I think this movie's a really fun summer adventure movie. It's probably number 6 on my favorite Star Wars movies. So it's not an exceptional movie. It's not going to be I've said this from the beginning, it's not going to be in the top 10 to discussion of the year, but it's a really good fun summer movie. But the fact of the matter is, I kept on saying, I just have a hard time seeing it getting much beyond 100 million because of all these factors. So because it's no one thing, it's going to be difficult for Lucasfilm to sit back and say, well, which one of those 4 things is the object lesson? I think really what they got to do is step back and say, maybe we need to address a number of things to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. So that's just, anyway, my thoughts on that. But you know me, I'm tired of the prequel stuff. I want to see new stuff in the Star Wars universe. Like, yeah, fine, I'll be excited for an Obi-Wan movie. Okay, fine, I'll go see Boba Fett, sure. But expand this universe. I've been crying this for years. Expand the Star Wars universe. Stop shrinking it. Shamanth writes, all the cast did a great job, but Solo felt very unexciting and an unnecessary story to tell. Well, no Star Wars movie, no movie for that sake has ever been necessary. Let's just get out of the way. I did think it was an exciting film, but, you know, again, not something that was going to revolutionize the film industry, not going to be a top 10 film of the year. You want to make a Solo film? Fine. Go for it. And if you want to do it without Harrison Ford, fine. Go for it. Well, obviously, you have to do it without Harrison Ford. I just think that there were, again, just so many things stacked against it that they backed themselves into a corner they could have easily avoided. Josh Crichton writes, thanks, John, for doing a show on Memorial Day. We know you didn't have to do it. I love coming in here and talking movies with you guys. Thanks for saying that, Josh. I appreciate that. Christopher Marabella just sends in a super chat. Thanks, Christopher. Dimsum05 writes, kind of bummed about the box office. Solo was great. I thought it was quite good. Like, I don't know that I'll go so far as to say it was great personally. I did have a lot of fun with it. And I went to go see it 3 times. And Alden Ehrenreich was terrific. Donald Glover was great. The relationship between Han and Chewie was fantastic. Those are the most important things, and they got that well. I would have loved, look, any movie that I like, I hope it does great. And for almost any other movie, 83 million opening weekend is fantastic. But this isn't just any other movie. It needed to do better than that. Brad Tims writes, next anthology film is Skywalker, a Star Wars story. 2 hours of young Luke shooting womp rats and hanging out at Tashi Station after his chores are done. Oh God, please don't give them any ideas. I mean, Luke is my all-time favorite character, yes, but please don't give them any more ideas about, let's do another movie about a young version of this guy. Like, I'm beyond that. Michael Soleric writes, that Christopher Robin trailer is fantastic. I was curious about the movie before, but now it's my most anticipated movie for the rest of the year. And you know what? You're not the first person that I heard say that, Michael. Who would have ever thought you'd hear like, oh, a Winnie the Pooh movie in the same sentence as most anticipated film of the year? And yet I am hearing after this trailer a number of people saying just that, saying this is now like my most anticipated film of the year. I like for what's left now that Deadpool or Solo or Avengers Infinity Wars, all that's in our rearview mirror now. There's a lot of people are saying this Winnie the Pooh movie might be their most anticipated film of the year. Who would ever thought? But I got to tell you, man, it's right up there for me too. Like I cannot believe how good the marketing for this has been. Josh writes, what reminds you of the 1980s? Even though I was born in 1995, when I think about the 80s, I think of St. Elmo's Fire by John Parr, Never Give You Up by Rick Astley, Rocky 3 and 4, just to name a few. Boy, what really reminds me when I think of I don't know, that's something I'd have to think about. I mean, like things like Beverly Hills Cop, instantly jump into mind when you're thinking about things like that. 80s, you're talking about TV shows like A-Team or Knight Rider or things like that. Those are things that always pop in my head. Not a lot of music does, but, thinking pop culturally, those are things. Now, I could probably come up with a much better answer for that, Josh, if I had some time to sit down and actually think about it. Like, that's a question that I'd actually have to think through a little bit. But, yeah, mostly, more than movies, it's TV shows that remind me and make me feel nostalgic about the 80s. And like I already said, A-Team, Smith & Smith, Knight Rider, Airwolf. Those are shows like that really weaned me. Transformers, the animated stuff, all those things are the ones that really get me. Let's see. Murray writes, I was kind of disappointed that you had no spoiler discussion. I left work a little early to watch, specifically because I love your Star Wars insights. There's so many surprises, Easter eggs. Please don't make me wait 4 months. No, I mean, yeah, I opted not to do a Star Wars or a solo spoiler review for a couple reasons. One, I was having second thoughts about doing it anyway because of the all the racist, homophobic, sexist losers out there who call themselves Star Wars fans, but that are, hey, there's a bunch of people out there who don't like The Last Jedi and don't like, the majority of people who don't like The Last Jedi and Star Wars just don't like it because they don't like it. Nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. But we know that there's this toxic, poisonous, cancerous group of people out there they put a black guy in a movie, they put a woman in the lead role, and I just didn't want to deal with them, to be honest with you. I thought, you know what, screw that. I really just thought I don't want to deal with those people, so I decided not to do it. And on top of that, I generally do my spoiler reviews with an $83 million opening. It means there's still a bunch of people who hadn't even seen the movie yet, so I opted against it. So I made the decision not to do the spoiler review, and that's like for my own personal choices that I decided on that. But there will be a lot of solo talk once we get into the next Star Wars talk. And of course, Star Wars talk is coming this week. It's exclusively on the Patreon supporters Facebook page, and I'm looking forward to doing that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Dakota Barber writes, missed your spoiler talk. Hope all is well. All is well. Just decided not to do it, as we just talked about. Josh writes, also Michael Jackson's Rock With You, Grateful Dead's Touch of Grey, Back to the Future, Back to the Future's a good one. That's a good one. Terminator and David Hasselhoff, like I mentioned Knight Rider as well. Back to the Future that's a good movie to mention about something that instantly will harken you back to the 80s. Let's see. Nicholas Glenn writes, I think anyone out there saying this is Star Wars fatigue is not seeing this for what it is. A lot of people do not like the direction Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm is taking Star Wars in. But Nicholas, you're also not getting the big picture. If you think it's just that one thing, you're off your rocker. It's not. Is that a section or a part of the issue? Yes. That is a part of the issue. But that in and of itself is a finite just fragment of the issue. There's a whole bunch of things that are also small fragments that when you put it all together create one big problem. And that's why I've been saying for months that I had a hard time believing this movie was going to get much over $100 million. I've been saying that for months because there are a bunch of these fragments that when you put them together, whether it's, who cares about Han Solo without Harrison Ford? Then you get the fact that there's a group of people that didn't like Last Jedi. Then you put on top of that the fact that it's opening on its second weekend of another major blockbuster film, Deadpool, with Avengers Infinity War still in theater. Then you put it on top of that this, and on top of that this. Anybody who says it's just one thing doesn't get the big picture. Anybody who says, oh, it's because of Star Wars fatigue, it's not because of Star Wars fatigue. Marvel can put out 4 films a year, nobody gets tired of it. People can watch 18 episodes of a television series in a year and not get tired of it. It's not Star Wars fatigue alone. People say, oh, it's just because of the Harrison Ford thing. No, it's not just because of the Harrison Ford thing. People say, oh, it's just because there are a bunch of people who didn't like Last Jedi. No, it's not just because of that. What it is a collection of it's a perfect storm of all of these different considerations, all happening at the same time. And that's the results that you get. So anybody who tries to tell you it's any one of those particular things isn't looking at the big picture. They're just not. Shemanth writes, India is not super big on Star Wars, but The Force, I think you meant The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi was packed, even Rogue One, but for Solo, they were almost empty. It's hard to imagine a film opening to $83 million and having empty theaters, because that's not empty. But, again, it just goes to prove the point that we've been talking about for months. Tony Tube writes, John, what happened? Star Wars was so beloved and successful. Last 3 movies, all more than $1 billion at box office, and now my heart is broken. Well, I mean, look, again, there's a couple things to keep in perspective here. Number one, $83 million is a huge opening weekend for most movies. Not for a Star Wars movie, but for most movies. We're already almost at June, and it's the 4th biggest opening of the year. That's all fine and good. But again, we were talking about for months that there were all these things working against it, and that's why, even when these projections of 150 million came out, and I'm like, okay, I just still have a hard time believing it's going to be over 100 because of this, and this. I mean, let's not pretend like we haven't been talking about this for months. We shouldn't all be that surprised. Like, even I'm surprised that I would have pegged it closer to like 105, 110, somewhere around there. So even I'm surprised at how low it came. But none of us should be surprised that it didn't come in that, because we've been talking about it for months. Nicholas Glenn writes, a friend's 9-year-old asked his dad what a pansexual was after he read online remarks from John Kasdan, and that's when he decided to skip taking his son to this movie. Could be why some did not see this movie. Well, there are some people who are afraid of anything that's different. There are some people who are afraid and don't want to acknowledge that gay people exist. There are some people who don't want to acknowledge that black people exist. There are some people who don't want to acknowledge that bisexual people exist. And the fact of the matter is, the comments in John Kasdan's comments, again, there are a lot of people who take them way out of context. First of all, John Kasdan was not speaking for Lucasfilm. He just said on his own behalf. And somebody asked him the question, do you think Lando's like pansexual? And all the writer said was, well, yeah, to me he is, because of this, and this. But he's not Lucasfilm. He is not Star Wars. He does not speak on their behalf. And there's nothing in the movie that suggests it. There's nothing in the movies that suggests otherwise either. All I'm going to say is that, look, everybody needs to make individual choices for themselves. If you choose to skip out on a piece of drama because it features somebody without white skin in the lead, or because it features somebody who has a different sexual orientation than you do, or it puts somebody in the lead, puts women in the lead, if you're one of those people, you need to make those choices for yourself. But it is not up to Hollywood or anybody to pander to you. Just because you don't want to see gay people or black people or whatever in lead roles, whatever, that's fine. You make your choice for you. But don't expect the rest of us to conform ourselves to meet your outdated sensibilities. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I'm not gonna come down on you. If that's the choices you want to make, then you make those choices. But don't expect the rest of us to go back to the 1960s just because you don't want to live in that world. I mean, that's fine. Jedi Lori writes, Solo less than Justice League opening. What planet am I on? Well, I mean, keep this in mind too. The difference between Solo and Justice League is Solo was never expected to be, amongst Star Wars films, a big hit, like compared to Star Wars films. Justice League, on the other hand, was the pinnacle of the DCEU. It was the ultimate DCU film. It was the film that the DCU was all building up towards. Solo is an anthology prequel film with a character that, in a movie that nobody wanted because the main guy that we all identified the character wasn't coming back to play it and all the other reasons we talked about. So there's that. It should have still been bigger, but there's no way I would have ever guessed that Justice League would not have opened bigger than a standalone Solo movie. I mean, if you go back before Justice League opened, I would have said no chance in hell that a Solo movie opens bigger than a Justice League movie with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg and all of them in one big movie together. There's a significant difference between Justice League and Solo. Solo was never going to be, nor was it ever expected to be, anywhere near close being the biggest of the Star Wars movies, whereas Justice League was easily supposed to be by far the biggest of the DCEU movies, ends up being the least of the DC movies when it was supposed to be the pinnacle. Solo was never supposed to be that. So I think even most opponents to Solo will tell you that. I think even most people who did not want this Solo movie would tell you, well, no one was expecting it to be a $2 billion film. Nobody was expecting it to be on the same level as the episodic film. So there's really a big difference between the two situations. Bomb Squad writes, could end up under $400 million. I don't think it'll end up under 4, but remember, because of all the reshoots, because of like 80% of reshoots, much like Justice League, this movie needs to make more than $400 million. Like $400 million normally would have been fine because that'll put you on breaking even, fine. But that's not the case anymore. Because of all the reshoots they did, this is just like the Justice League situation. Justice League's budget got overinflated because they had to reshoot so much of the movie. The same thing happened with Solo. The budget for this movie just ballooned because they went back and reshot like 80% of the film. Solo needs to make closer to what Justice League made, which is in the $600 to $650 million range. I would contend just to break even. 400 isn't even good enough. See, I think it'll get to 400, but I do not think it's going to get to that 650 mark. And that's where it's got to get. It's got to get that high. It's got to get up high enough to break even. And after all these reshoots, you're probably looking at a budget of $320 million. After all the reshoots, 400 million isn't good enough. They got to get up to like 650. And I don't think they're going to get to that. I do think they'll get over 400. I'm guessing they're going to get over 400, but I don't think they're going to get to the break even point. I don't think they will. It's the same situation as Justice League. It's just because of that inflated budget, they had to do better. Tennis Flatter writes, hard to talk about news on the John Campea show. A lot of SC, I don't know what the SC is, at the beginning and short time for answering. You're too popular, maybe news only, video at 8:30. No, I like doing, I appreciate the suggestion, Tennis Flatter, but I like the format of my show. I really do like the way we do it. Curtis Lopez writes, I went to the Beauty and the Beast concert too. That's awesome. It was such a good time. I had so much fun. Santiago Media writes, my first Star Wars film in theaters. I loved Solo. And a lot of people did. A lot of people really did like Solo. The problem was all those things kept people from going to check it out. And it's a good movie. It's not a contender for movie of the year. It's not in the same league as A Quiet Place or anything like that. But yeah, most people who come out of the movie are really enjoying it. Let's see. Chris Warden writes, back in February, I predicted Solo might do 150 plus million opening weekend, and you said you didn't really see it and predicted around 100 million. Well played, sir. Well, I mean, to be fair, Chris, a lot of people were predicting 150 million. Like the early tracking came out, said 150 million. So don't feel bad that you were predicting that either. You were in good company. I was the idiot that everybody said was just being stubborn for calling it closer to 100 million. But I mean, yeah, but again, don't feel bad about that because like everybody was pointing towards 150 million. And even I was like, well, okay, maybe, I guess. I mean, if everybody's saying it, maybe it's true. But yeah, I just think there was too many things stacked up against it. Tennis Flatter writes, badass Beauty and the Beast concert, dude. It was so much fun. Seriously, guys, if you get a chance to go see something like that, go do it. Thomas Roughly writes, with the Solo projections being the lowest of any Star Wars film, will Disney's direction on one-off movies change? Again, I don't think so, because I think if there was any one reason that this happened, I believe they would have to reassess. But because it was a multiple number of reasons that all came together, they have to look at this more holistically. They got to look at this more holistically and figure out what really was like, how do we address all these issues instead of just saying, oh, there was just one. It wasn't just one. It was a multiple number of issues. And they got to look at this as at a bigger picture level rather than just one simple little answer. Jedi Lori writes, high budget. What does Solo need to break even? Again, my guess is around 600 to 650 million, and I don't think it's going to get there. There are some people saying, like, oh, it's got to at least make 400 million. No. It needs to make way more than that. because again of the reshoots, it inflated the budget. It's the same situation as the Justice League thing. Once you reshoot almost the whole movie, your budget goes up significantly. And I think they came in more around 300, 320. You put all the other considerations into place, this movie's got to make 600, 650 million just to break even. Whether it will or not, we'll have to just wait and see. Let's see. Jonathan C. writes, said it before, saying it again, we didn't need a Han Solo movie. Like you said, they should make movies on expanding the universe or an Old Republic. Well, to be technical, Jonathan, no movie needs to be made. We didn't need any movie. So let's just be clear about that. But, I mean, and look, to their credit, they made a good movie. But they put themselves in a bad position. They absolutely did. Let's see. Big jump. Okay, here we go. That Riddler writes, John, do you think Kathleen Kennedy will finally keep identity politics out of Star Wars, or will she decide to continue to crash and burn the franchise? Here's the thing, that Riddler. The only people putting in identity politics is you. When you watch The Force Awakens, there is no identity politics in the movie. There's never Rey going. If there was some scene with Rey going, in this galaxy, nobody thinks a woman can accomplish anything, but I, a woman, can show that I, a woman, can be the greatest Jedi ever. No one ever would have thought that I, a woman, would be the greatest Jedi. I will go out into the stars. There was never any of those scenes. The only people bringing identity politics into Star Wars are the people who don't want to see women in movies. The movie didn't put identity politics into it. You point to me one scene in a Star Wars story that points to identity politics. You point to me one scene that does that. They're not. It's just a character, regardless of gender, doing whatever. But then there was a bunch of people out there who, women shouldn't be Jedi. Women are supposed to show their tits, not their faces. Why is that black dude over there? Who wants black guys in the Star Wars universe? It's other people who brought identity politics into Star Wars. Star Wars didn't do it. It's other people bringing their biases and their prejudices into the Star Wars thing. And that's what's part of the big toxic fandom thing right now. Let's see. Patrick Kiwi writes, love The Last Jedi, love Solo, but I'm not watching any future reviews or articles about Star Wars. I just absolutely hate how the quote-unquote fan base reacts to everything. By the way, really liked the Christopher Robin trailer. And yeah, it's kind of the same thing that's happened with me. This toxic, cancerous group online has kind of turned me off of wanting to be a part of the online Star Wars fan community. And that's one of the main reasons why I decided not to do Star Wars Talk anymore on my main channel. I'm just going to do Star Wars Talk with my Patreon supporters now. Because I'm like you. I don't even want to engage and see what that toxic, cancerous group is doing or talking about. Miles Pardo writes, was Solo a referendum on the Star Wars franchise? No. And again, this is a very different situation than, say, the Justice League. Now, one of the things I always say is that, and I've gone over time, so I got to make this last question, but Justice League was a referendum by the fans on the DCEU. The DCEU, which, by the way, has never had a single film make it to the $1 billion club. Not a single DCU film has made $1 billion. And by the way, I like every single one of the DCU films. Go watch my reviews. I've given a positive review to every single DCU movie, but not one of them has made $1 billion at the box office. But again, Justice League was supposed to be the crown jewel of the DCEU. That's what you're building up towards. You are building towards Justice League, a movie with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman and all these, and Commissioner Gordon, and that was your crown jewel. That was supposed to be your biggest and best movie that was going to turn the tide, a potentially $2 billion film, if you'd ask anybody a couple of years ago. I mean, if the first Avengers movie can make $2 billion, surely the first Justice League can make $2 billion. That's where its potential was. But what happened instead was, what should have been the crown jewel end up making the least amount of any of the DCU movies. It's a very different circumstance from Solo. Solo was not what the Star Wars universe has been building up to. Solo was not ever going to be the crown jewel of your franchise. Solo was not the epitome, the apex, the summit of the Star Wars mountain. If it was, let's say episode 9. Let's say if it was episode 9 and it opens and it made $83 million. Then that's the same situation as Justice League. A Solo movie that nobody wanted and blah, blah, and all the other reasons that we already talked about is not in the same situation. Look, it doesn't take away from the fact that Solo's opening is disappointing. There's no way to sugarcoat that. It's not good. It is a negative thing. It is a disappointment. Not as disappointing to me because I kind of thought it'd be around 100 million anyway, but even I thought it'd be about 10, 15, 20 million more. There's no way to sugarcoat that. However, it's not in the same league as the Justice League situation because the Justice League situation was a movie that was supposed to be your biggest film. And that's a little bit different of a situation than we have now. Curtis Lopez writes, the Kim Possible movie is not going to be in theaters. It's a TV movie on the Disney Channel. See, I've seen different reports on that. I've seen some outlets saying it's going to be in theaters. I've seen some outlets saying it's going to be on the Disney Channel. I don't care enough to really know the difference, to be honest with you. I'm just being honest. I'm just being purely honest with you. But like I said, I'm reading conflicting reports. I've read some of the major outlets saying it was going to be in theaters, some saying it was going to be in the Disney Channel. So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Jerome Lim writes, going to Game 1 of the Stanley Cup tonight. I know I'm going a little bit overtime here, guys, but hey, it's Memorial Day. It's the holiday week. It's our first show this week. I'll go a little bit extra long. Jerome Lim writes, going to Game 1 of the Stanley Cups tonight. Go Knights, historic night. That's awesome. I'm so envious. Me and some friends were just talking about the Stanley Cup finals last night. Official party channel, favorite Dutch actor movie. Honestly, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who even is a Dutch actor, so I don't know. Lorna Chandri writes, I do not understand why people in a fandom are so angry. I guess I am old and I thought being a fan is a happy thing. I hope people can just relax. Love the show. So do my cats, Luke and Leia. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, again, there's being a fan, and I'll stand by this. And this goes all the way back to the prequels. Being a fan does not mean saying, I love everything about this thing. No, I hate the prequels. I hate the Clone Wars. There's a couple of the seasons in Rebels that I don't like. There are certain things even about the movies that I do like that I don't. Being a fan is not about sticking your head in the sand and pretending that everything's good. Again, listen to sports talk radio. The biggest New York Giants fans are the ones who will get on the radio and complain about the things they don't like about the New York Giants the most. That's fine. But they love the New York Giants. Here's the thing. Fandom becomes really toxic. And I've mentioned this before. When your identity becomes more about what you hate than it is about what you love. When your identity becomes more identifiable and more wrapped up in what you hate, that's toxic, cancerous fandom. When your fandom is no longer defined by what it is that you love, but rather defined by what you hate, that's when toxic fandom comes in. I hate the prequels, but I don't identify myself as a Star Wars fan based on my hatred of the prequels. I identify myself as just a fan of Star Wars by all the things that I love about Star Wars. And I'll talk to you very openly about the things I don't like if you want to talk about them. I'll talk about how terrible I think the prequels are all day long. But if you like the prequels, that's great. No problem here. If you like them, you like them. I'm glad you get some joy out of them. But not me. So a fandom isn't really about always just saying great, wonderful, positive things. Being a fan sometimes means expressing the things that you're concerned about, expressing the things that didn't work for you. Still, you love the thing of the object of your fandom, but it's also about expressing the things you're concerned about. And that's true fandom as well, I think. Let's see. Tennis Flato writes, thank you from a U.S. Army vet for the show on Memorial Day. Hope everyone has a great one. Have fun and be safe. Well, Tennis Flato to you and to all the servicemen and women in all countries around the world. Thank you for your service and what you do for your country, your service, and your sacrifice. It can't be overstated. It simply can't be overstated. Curtis Lopez writes, John, take these two droids into the garage. I want them cleaned up before dinner. But I wanted to go to Tashi Station and get some power converters. Micah Harshaw writes, John, longtime fan here. In the spirit of Memorial Day, what is your favorite war/military film? Most people haven't seen it, but Act of Valor is mine. Act of Valor is great. Man, I think I still have to go with Saving Private Ryan. And one of the reasons, and maybe if I think about it more, I'll say something different. But one of the reasons that Saving Private Ryan to me is so special is that it glorifies heroes without glorifying war. And that's something another reason why Steven Spielberg is the greatest filmmaker of all time. A lot of people have trouble balancing that line. Like if they want to glorify the hero, they often end up glorifying war as well. Saving Private Ryan did such a great job of emphasizing the heroic hearts of the characters without glamorizing the war in which they had to fight. Like, if you ever watch the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, you will always know war sucks, and war is dumb, and war is stupid, and it just sucks. At the same time, it really highlights the heroism of the characters in there. It glorified the heroes without glorifying war. There's something beautiful about that mixture that they did in that film, and that's why that one stands out there to me. All right, I'm just going to do 2 more here, and then, you know what? No, I'm going to finish these off really quick. Teresa writes, Solo would have had less competition Deadpool 2 if Deadpool 2 was moved up. Yeah, if Deadpool 2 was moved up, it would have been a little bit of a difference. But again, that's not the only thing that caused this. I mean, heaven's sakes. I mean, Deadpool 2 still made over $40 million in its second weekend. I mean, so that's incredible. So yes, Solo would have done better had it not been on Deadpool's just second weekend. But let's not pretend that that would have fixed everything. It wouldn't have. There were still a bunch of other factors involved as well, which has kind of been our mantra here today. Let's see. DJ CD01 writes, we had 20 people opening night for Solo in our theater. I posted people to give it a chance. Enjoyable movie with nice surprise cameo, talk 80s, built me a Knight Rider kit, exact replica, and General Lee. Oh my God, seriously? Like an exact life-size replica? Oh my God. See, I live in a very popular movie market in Los Angeles. So the opening night of Solo where I live was packed out. I mean, it was packed out. The theater was jammed, and all the theaters it was playing in, it was jammed. But I live in a very big movie market. So I live in the Los Angeles area. So where I went was packed. I had people sending me pictures of packed houses. I had a couple of people send me pictures of just them and like 15 or 20 other people in the theater. That's roughly right for an $80+ million opening movie. That's pretty much. Some theaters are going to be packed. Some theaters are going to be half empty. I mean, that's just the way it is. Joe D writes, could the Solo box office situation affect the direction of Episode 9? No, I don't see it at all. Episode 9 is so far removed from all those reasons we talked about. So that it's so far removed from that I don't see that affecting Episode 9 at all. J.J. Abrams is going to do his thing, and I don't see it affect. Plus, it's probably too late to have affected it anyway. They're already well into pre-production on this thing, so no, I don't think it's going to affect it at all. Let's see. Do you consider, and we'll end with this. This is the last one today. Lucas Vieira writes, do you consider Kathleen Kennedy administration good or bad? Here's the thing. As somebody, much like the DCEU situation, first of all, I love The Force Awakens. I love that movie. I like it more every time I watch it. I love Rogue One. I really like The Last Jedi. I mean, I talk openly often about the problems that I have with the movie, but I really did. I thought it was a very bold movie. I really liked it. And I like Solo. What I have always said, and I'm a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, but here is my biggest criticism of Kathleen Kennedy. And I've been very open about this. Kathleen Kennedy's, from my perspective, at any rate, Kathleen Kennedy's most important job is to get directors on board and be on the same page with them and understand the vision, the direction, and get the right directors on board and be in synchronicity with them to get the movies done. And on that level, Kathleen Kennedy, as an executive, quite frankly, has a failing grade. We had the big botch up with Josh Trank. The director of Chronicle was supposed to do Boba Fett. That thing fell apart. We had everything falling apart with Colin Trevorrow. We had the whole situation with Lord and Miller. You know, we got J.J. Abrams coming in last second here. Like, so far, the track record that Kathleen Kennedy has had of what I consider to be her most important job when it comes to the films is that getting the right directors in place that share a vision, making sure they're all on the right page. And how many times have we seen directors come and go, and like even so much so that they pulled and fired directors 80% into the shooting of a movie with Solo? That to me cannot be underestimated. You have to look at that very, very seriously. If Kathleen Kennedy, who Steven Spielberg says she is the one of the most gifted producers he's ever worked with, and if Steven Spielberg, the greatest filmmaker of all time, says that, I'll take his word over anybody else's, thank you very much. But that being said, if the most important job is getting the right directors in, being on the same page with them, and she's had like 4 director turnovers, one of which was done 80% into shooting a movie, whether it was the director's fault or not, it's your job as the executive to make sure they're on the same page as you and that you're on the same page as them, and then you proceed and do something like that. The fact that we've seen so much director turnover, that to me is the biggest damning piece of evidence against Kathleen Kennedy at this point, because that's her most important job as an executive. So I like the movies we're getting. But I have been, and I've expressed this before, I've been expressing this for 6 months. My biggest concern with her right now is her inability so far to get in the right directors, making sure they're on the same page as Lucasfilm, and making sure Lucasfilm's on the right page with them, and being able to both have a shared equal vision and going. And the fact that they've been through so many directors kind of suggests that there's a problem. So I don't share the same concerns about Kathleen Kennedy that a lot of other people do. My concerns with Kathleen Kennedy exclusively, but importantly, rest on that big main thing. And that is something that she has to get under control. And that Bob Iger needs to work with her on to make sure that gets under control. Because I'll say this, while I have enjoyed the movies, if she can't do that most important thing of the job and get that really under control, maybe there needs to be a change in leadership. I'm not saying there does. I'm just saying that maybe there needs to be a change in leadership. And I'm a fan of Kathleen Kennedy. But, I mean, that is something that has to be addressed. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. We went a little bit extra long today because it's Memorial Day and we've been off all weekend. Thanks so much for joining here, guys. Don't forget, guys, if you've not done so already, I mentioned a little bit earlier that Star Wars Talk is now exclusive for Patreon. What is Patreon? Do me a favor. Head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter keeps these shows on the air, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. Benefits like Star Wars Talk, benefits like audio-only versions of the shows, benefits like the exclusive Facebook group and some other things as well. Go check that out, and maybe you'll become a Patreon supporter. If you do, awesome, and if you don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm just grateful you're here being a film fan with us. All right, guys, don't forget, Open Mic comes up a little bit later today. My name's John Campea. Thanks so much for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.